Hi, this is just a quick video on how to problem solve when you have a research question and you can't seem to find any sources for it. So I'm going to use an example from one student who wanted to take a look at, first of all, his research question was about the reputation of elite athletes. And when I asked him to narrow it down a little bit more, he decided to look at how are athletes at Christian schools in America viewed by non-athletes. Good question. And what is the reputation of all athletes at universities in America? It's pretty big, but still, it helped me get a better idea of what he wanted to learn. So, with that in mind, I first of all decided before giving him help, I wanted to see what type of success or failure he was having with finding sources. So I go to the library database and I start with words that I think are going to work. I come up with status, athlete, university. Now, I think these should all be great words to use, but when I hit them in, okay, so I have 196 sources. But as I'm looking through this, they're just not all that terribly helpful. I'm getting a bunch of medical stuff here, and I don't know, tattoos and universities. I don't know. Okay, then I see one. I go, oh man, this might be kind of interesting. Sport participation influences perceptions of mate characteristics. Although when I first read it, I thought it said of male characteristics. But I click on it, and I come and I look in this potentially interesting site, and it talks about social status right here, so that's one of the reasons I thought it was going to be great. It was really just that whether or not males and females considered athletes to be more desirable as a mate. And they weren't using real athletes to study social status. They were using more kind of a picture or a description of somebody as an athlete. So that's not really helpful at all. I went back and I tried other words that I thought would work instead of status. I did reputation. But you know what? I didn't have much more help with this one. Um, when I started doing this, uh, one second, stop that search. I was coming up with not a heck of a lot, and so I was coming up with maybe 10 sources, none of which were really helpful to me. How do high schools decide to go? It doesn't tell me how we judge reputation. It just uses high school athletes to say, was reputation one of the things, was athletic reputation why you picked the school? So that's not going to help me measure a reputation or status. And these other ones, they just have nothing to do with what I'm looking at. So I try other things. Instead of athlete, I tried sports and thought, well, we'll see how this works. And I tried combinations of sports, reputation, sports, social status, and none of that was working. So then I decided to play with university and try college. And then I tried variations of college athlete social status, college sports social status. Uh, that didn't help me a whole lot. I was getting some similar stuff as the last one. It just wasn't really helping me. So I just wasn't seeing what I needed. And let's see, another one I tried, instead of college, I tried higher education. And this was not helpful either. So didn't get a heck of a lot here. I did find a few sources here and there that would kind of maybe one or two I would find, but just nothing that really seemed all that helpful. I also tried liberal arts to see if there was anything about liberal arts that would come up, and I'm getting one article here. So I'm going to, pull it up and see. This one just keeps coming up. It's about doping and testing and what happens if athletes are tested. What are the implications for reputation? And you know what? that's not really helping me. Again, I ended up really, the social status one was the one that I thought had the most help. And so I went back to that. And of course, there's nothing here. And I thought, you know what? I don't care if it's high school. If I could find somebody who talked about determining the social status or reputation of an athlete at any level in school, that could be interesting. So I got rid of the whole college thing because I decided that wasn't important necessarily. Oh, and I misspelled status here, so that's probably why it's not going. All right, so we'll keep going. And, okay, I get 120, so that's kind of interesting, social status, sports. But you know what? That's too many to be going through. I'm going to pick, let's see if I can pick the country. I just want ones from the United States because I want to evaluate students who are in the United States. All right, females, preschool, oh, female athlete. Okay, that's not helpful. But what I did was I finally chanced upon one particular article. And when I looked at the article, it used the word perception. And I hadn't used perception as one of my terms. It wasn't one that I thought of. And suddenly that became a much more helpful word. And when I entered perception, I began to get more information. And so I tried this a couple times, and I thought it was interesting here because now I could get into some more rating scales of how do we judge social status or reputation. And so I thought this was great. And when I came upon this particular article, do high school athletes succeed in college? I thought, okay, you know what, this could be interesting because they're going to have to decide some ways to measure success. And so this could give me a lot of possible sources. So, and it tells me here we're looking at studies on the perception of student athletes. Amen. That's exactly what I'm looking for. What's the perception of student athletes? And can I take that information and, you know, how did they rate students in this in that study of what questions did they ask about student athletes where they could measure perception? So I want to read about all these sources and see what's happening to find more things that I can look at. I always think that when it comes to a literature review, if you can find one good source, it will lead you to every other good source that you need. All right, so this is my one good source. And I'm going to look through it. And now, since I'm talking, I'm not really able to read and talk at the same time. But I tell you, as I read through it 10 minutes ago, I found that there was a discussion at one point about the social status, and it led me to some sources that were in the bibliography. It was Engstrom and Sedlacek, 1989, Engstrom and Sedlacek in 1991, Prejudice Against Student Athletes Among University Students, a study of prejudice towards university student athletes. Now, this first source I can't get. It was a conference, and it's not a major one that would have sources. But this one, Journal of Counseling and Development, I bet I can get this one. So this is what I'm going to get, and this is what I'm going to look at because it's going to tell me what questions they asked, and that will help me be able to ask my questions of the reputations of athletes. All right, so that's just a little example of how I go from finding nothing to finding something. And it took me about 45 minutes. It wasn't quick. All right, so it wasn't simple, easy. It wasn't just, just because I've been doing this for many years, it didn't happen that it was just automatic. It took time, it took work. And so that's what it will do for you as well. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of how you can keep looking for sources even though you don't seem to be finding anything and you're really frustrated. Keep trying different words, pull up articles, look for some words that are used in the other articles and try those. All right, have a great day, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.